So here we are, got the, that is the inner joint. You know, you got this dust cover, knocks off pretty easy. And then the joint itself, I haven't taken this apart to clean it yet, but that's the inner joint that mounts to the transmission. No big deal. You know, loosen the inner clamp, and then actually I did have to hammer to get this apart. I took a socket, put it on the end of here, put the joint itself in a vise, didn't clamp it down, but just used the vise to support it because it was easier than holding it with my hands. Whacked on the axle enough until it came loose. Actually held the axle as I was beating it on the other end with a hammer, knocked it loose. I don't know when it's been apart. So anyway, the main reason for this, here is the outer joint. This is the one, you know, here's your axle nut. That's the 340 pounds axle nut. And if you look at this thing, it doesn't come apart. Presumably this is why Porsche will not sell you this outer joint. They only sell you the inner joint. And so as I'm looking at this, you know, I wiped it as good as I could. Got as much, well actually I can, you know, wipe some more. Got as much of what I thought was contaminated grease out of there. I'm still not done. Then I went to the internet and basically looked for opinions. I'm not seeing any, so that's why I'm making this video. You know, do I throw this whole thing in the solvent? Try and get as much grease out of there as I can, realizing I can't get to the back side of it to grease it. You know, I can use a needle and try and push it past the joint there, but I don't see any way of getting this thing apart. You know, I could hammer on this, but there's a flange there. This thing is plastic for the ABS brake sensor, I assume. And then when you look at the end of it, I mean, the plastic is fused to the metal. So clearly it's not designed to come apart. And there's a circlip under there, and I'm really a little bit pissed off at Pelican Parts for selling me the circlip. Granted, yeah, they're $1.50 a piece or so, but I can't get under this thing to remove that circlip. So if you're considering this job, this is the whole point of this video, realize that you're not going to get this outer CV joint apart. At least no way that I can figure out. This thing is a sealed unit, and I assume that's why Porsche wants to sell you the whole axle. If it was a Boxster S, no big deal. They're fairly cheap, but because it's not an S, they want $980 for this damn thing. So I'm going to clean the grease out. I haven't yet decided if I'm going to throw this thing in the solvent to try and get the most of the grease out, or just go with what I could get out of there and put fresh grease in. I mean, changing the boot is no big deal. If it wouldn't have been a torn boot, I would have no concerns at all, but the boot was torn. Now, we just bought the car. I think it was sitting for a long time. I don't think it'd been torn long. There's no play in there. I mean, it feels decent. I just don't know if I've got any sand in there, and I'm not sure how to get it out, because I'm not sure if I should put this plastic in the solvent. And if I do, I mean, I'm pretty sure I can get all the grease out, but how do I get enough grease back behind that thing to ensure that it's lubricated? So, anyway, sorry I didn't give you a lot of answers here, but just know before you tear this apart that you're probably not going to get this apart. And I don't know why Pelican Parts sells it as if you can yank this thing off and tear it apart. In hindsight, I went back and looked at their message board, and yeah, it's severely lacking. So, anyway, it'll last for a while. And then maybe I'll have to buy the frickin' $980 axle if it finally fails. Anyway, later. Bye.